I've relegated myself to the idea that if I'm not black to you, that's okay.
Right.
Which I don't know if that's a wrong way.
Right.
But identity is such a personal quest. And if your identity is centered around defining yourself to fit in within a category, and fitting me within that category messes up your definition, I don't want to mess with that.
Exactly.
I am whatever makes you comfortable,
Right.
which puts me in this constant limbo of other people being responsible for how I feel about myself.
Like, what do you think
What
I
do you
am?
think
'Cause
I
I'll
am?
just go with that.
Yeah, exactly.
This video is sponsored by Audible, the leading place for audio entertainment from audio fitness programs, audiobooks, Audible originals, and more. What I love most about Audible are the things that I learned that genuinely help me process the world. We are dedicating this video to the uncomfortable but necessary conversations we are called to have in our personal lives. And that's why I want to share some audiobooks that have helped us improve our understanding around the sometimes difficult issues we face in the world today.
If you like audio, you'll love Audible, so why not give them a free try? Audible has a 30-day free trial where you will get 1 credit to any audiobook of your choosing and full access to the Plus catalog for free. The thing I love about Audible is they are always adjusting and putting members' experience first. Audible has rolled out its newest membership plan, Audible Plus. With Audible Plus, members get full access to the Plus catalog, which is filled with thousands and thousands of select originals, Audible books, and podcasts, including ad-free versions of popular shows as well as exclusive series. With Audible Plus, you can listen all you want to the Plus catalog.
To start these conversations, I highly recommend the audiobooks White Fragility, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria, So You Want to Talk About Race, and Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet. Plus, they host exclusive content made specifically for members every month. Visit audible.com/shanboody to start listening now. Or, if you're in the US, you can text shanboody to 500-500. Again, that's audible.com/shanboody or text shanboody to 500-500.
Hey there, lovers and friends. This is my sister Lauren Morrison, and I tapped her to be a part of this video because this is an area that I consider you to be much more intelligent than I am. And
Thank you.
You didn't even try to deny it.
No, I said thank you.
Yeah. This is a channel about sex, love, and relationships, but a few times I have touched upon race and identity, specifically my own race and identity. My mom is half black, half white, and my dad is East Indian from Guyana. Because I don't visually represent what you think of when you think of black or Indian, or of course not white, I'll never truly get those identification politics right because I just don't fit into those slots that neatly. And as a result, it's always going to be this gray area. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten more comfortable with existing in that space. I feel one with black women and with black people especially, but I also acknowledge that I don't have the black experience. And so there's always going to be this kind of confusing back and forth of like, where do I fit in? How do I show my enthusiasm and the community I feel without overshadowing the experiences that actually represent the community? And 2020 has been a year where conversations like these have come up, and in a very important way.
Yes.
And I've wanted to contribute, but I haven't really found the correct angle. So I'm going to start with a disclaimer. This is not my area of expertise. I'm speaking mostly on my own experiences and my own identity, but Lauren is here to add more gravitas to things.
Still to speak about my own
Yes.
opinion and my own identity, for sure.
If anything wrong is said in this video, please direct all comments this way. So let's start off with the $1 million question. We are sisters. We have the same mother and father,
Yes.
but I'm not sure if we have the same answer to this question, which is interesting. And here's the $1 million question. How do you identify racially?
My answer is I identify as black, but that is a new answer. That is a new answer that you even see now that I struggle with. I used to always say, like, when I would be at work, I remember that I would have other black leaders come to me and they were like, you know, because you're this black woman and you're going places, and I would stop them and be like, black-ish. And one person actually said to me, I didn't want to offend you by calling you black. And I was like, no, you're not offending me by calling me black. That wasn't what that's not what I'm trying to communicate. But I've also always associated myself as a person who's not allowed to identify as black because we're mixed race. So we're not really able to identify with anything clearly.
Yes.
So I know that back in elementary school, I really tried to identify as Indian. I was like, you know, that's the strongest part of my heritage. I'll identify as Indian. And my Indian friends were like, you're not really Indian. She's not really Indian. Or they would have these conversations and be like, you wouldn't know what that is because you're not really Indian. And then when I got to high school and then there were more black people around, I started to trend towards that way. But there would always be that comment where someone would be like, oh, she has really nice hair. And be like, she's not really black, right? So there was always this, you're not allowed to identify that way. So I've always shuddered at identifying that way. But what I realized is that I was actually coming off as, remember how when you would say to grandma, like, grandma, you're black, she'd be like, I'm non-Caucasian.
Yeah.
And then I was like, am I that? Am I now sounding like a person who doesn't want to own black? Because if I stutter over the word, then my kids are going to stutter over the words. And I don't want them to ever feel like it's something to be ashamed of. It's just, I personally have had a hard time saying it because of a long history of people always saying, including our parents, you're not black.
I, even listening to you, wanted to get up the courage to say clearly as definitively an answer as you would. And I still don't have it. So if somebody asks me...
Have you ever had to like check off one of those boxes, like diversity questionnaires?
If I ever do, I always do check off black.
Yes.
However, I learned this year that you can actually check off multiple boxes, up to 3. I did not know that you could do that before 2020.
Right.
I thought you had to select one. And if I'm honest with you, the one that I would select and feel most comfortable in selecting would be black.
Yeah.
There was an interesting way that I was introduced to identity this year, and it was specifically directed towards sex and gender identity. But I thought this actually really spoke to me in terms of racial identity, because I am a cis heterosexual woman who identifies as woman and who looks woman. So I never have to have this conversation around gender and sex.
Right.
Whereas in other people, it's a massive part of their life trying to figure out what is the right language. But racially, that's more so been my area of like, what is the right language? And so identity is comprised of 4 different elements. So the 4 pillars of identity are physical, biological, emotional, and mental. Physical is also social. Do people visibly recognize you as a part of that specific group? Biological, do your parents or, were you born or identified at birth as a part of that particular group? And then there is emotional. Do you empathize and sympathize with that group? Do you feel a oneness with them? And then mental, do you go through the world experiencing things through the eyes and experiences of somebody in that group?
Physical has always been a touch and go place, because when people look at us, we're the same makeup, but you look more black than I do. I look more Indian than you do, right? So it's just interesting, even this dialogue, because our physical attributes say one thing, but how we connect emotionally say a different thing.
Even though I present more half black, half white than you do present more of a person of color than I do. So I think that the assumption around your whiteness would be less.
Oh yeah, I can't identify as white.
Yeah,
that's for sure. I don't think that we've ever really talked to our parents about their experience with racism. We don't talk, like, it's just one of those things that we just never spoke about, because race was always something that was debated in our household. So we just never discussed it. But even learning, like in Canada, as a black person, you couldn't buy property in the 1960s. Like, how are you going to get generational wealth?
Yeah.
With laws that existed like that, right? So understanding, getting better educated on systematic racism really helped me to connect more to, wow, that actually is an experience that I identify with. I just never knew what it was. Systematic racism means that there is a world of psychological barriers that tell you what your place is, and then have not set you, and historically have not set us up for the same success as some of our white counterparts.
Yes, every generation in our family that I know of, us included, has had to be self-made.
Yes.
Our parents provided all of our needs, all of our basic needs were met, but when it came time to adulting, we were fully responsible for the path that we took, for the education that we had to invest in, for the homes that we bought, for the jobs that we got. So I think about that, like, everybody got into a bit better of a position. And I think about the past 4 generations in our family, but everybody essentially had to be self-made.
There's no knocking what our parents did for us, because they absolutely did the best that they could possibly do. But they were starting 200 years behind where others have. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, where it's like, oh, I didn't understand it.
And that really should empower you to want to do for other people. And
Exactly.
I think that's what happened this year for me. A part of what I think was really amazing about the conversations happening this year is for the first time I started to think about, one, where is my place in the Black community? And two, how do I use my position of privilege to elevate other people
Right.
and to help
Yes.
and to be an advocate?
Yes.
And through even just having that thought process, I was able to catch microaggressions and racism at the workplace in a way that I never really have before.
Yeah.
And I remember they were people at my job were talking so negatively. We had, I have many jobs, first and foremost. Let me just say that as a disclaimer. So I work on various different projects as part of what I do. I work for myself, but I have many different projects. So one of the projects I was working on, there was only other one Black team member on this particular project, and they were being so harsh with that person, and unknowingly in many cases just using language or being very derogatory towards them. And I took it upon myself to work specifically with that person and to give them more uplifting language and to make it clear to the powers that be that I identified with this person. And so
Right.
when speaking about them, they should talk about them like we're part of the same community.
Right.
So to add a protection there. And I remember another job that I was working on, they were talking about who to hire to help with my social media, who to hire to help with. And they were sending resumes or showing me people. And I was like, I need a Black woman.
Right.
And they were caught off guard by that. If you want somebody who's able to communicate to my audience and more specifically to communicate on behalf of me, has to be somebody I feel a oneness with. And these are the people that I choose as a part of my oneness. And so that was the first time that I acknowledged that saying that I was Black or identifying as Black wasn't taking away from anybody else, but it was an opportunity for me to give back more.
And it's interesting because you say that you actually produced content, especially around, the Black Lives Matter movement, and you wanted to put your voice out there, but because of this internal struggle that you have with your own identity, you just don't feel like you're the right person to do that.
Well, even further than that is when, everybody was all white people, or many people were going through that, I'm trying to highlight people of color,
Right.
Black, Indigenous people of color's voices.
Right.
But specifically, I'm trying to highlight Black voices.
Exactly.
And so many people would tag me, white people would tag me in a list of Black sex educators. And I felt really uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, when people are asking you to highlight Black voices, they're not asking you to highlight me. They're asking you to highlight, and I actually put a list of 10 Black sex educators that I felt genuinely, should be uplifted at this time.
Right.
I'm just not me.
When the George Floyd events happening and the riots started happening, and there was a lot of discussion around, reaching out to your Black friends, to finding out if they're okay, and having a conversation, learning their experience. I had people coming to me, and it was weird for me, but I stopped questioning why they were coming to me, and then started to take up if they are coming to you, then I should be able to educate. I should be able to guide them. I should be able to have this conversation. So when I was trying to put together okay, what do we do as an organization, at my work, as a team, if we're putting a spotlight on the fact that minorities or Black people are so underrepresented in corporations, and I'm in a corporation, and I also have the unique advantage where I have a voice, where I'm the only Black person, only Black female on my team, and I actually influence the team agendas. I influence the town hall speeches. Whatever the VPs, SVP, presidents say, I have a direct line of influence. And that was a weight that was okay, Lauren, you actually can do something. What are you going to do? It was hard for me to unsilence myself because it's something that you're always told that people will roll their eyes at you if you talk about racism. But the first thing I had to do was become comfortable in my own skin to say that I am Black, and this has been my Black experience. It may not sound exactly like what you think a Black experience sounds like. For other Black people, it may not be exactly what your Black experience has been, but this is my Black experience, and this is how I feel. These are how the events have affected me.
Not even just are you speaking from your own experience, you've always gone above and beyond to understand the history, to understand the context, right, and to include and uplift other people, other Black voices through your leadership. Right. And I think that's why when somebody comes to you to ask a question, they're not just getting Lauren Morrison's answer. And that's why to me in many ways, like you've earned blackness more than I have. I know everything I'm saying is ridiculous, and I understand that, but like that's just the nuances
I know what you mean though, but for a lifetime of never being able to buy into an identity, like it's going to be in your own time, in your own makeup of things. Like, because even though you're looking at me saying you've earned the ability to say that, you asked me at the beginning of this podcast and I couldn't just come out and say it.
Yeah,
I'm still working that through. But it's even interesting because Emmanuel Acho, when I read his book, so Emmanuel Acho, he does the Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man YouTube series, and he just released a book. He actually prefaced that book by he even had like this disclaimer that said, I didn't think that I'm the one to have these conversations because my Black experience looked like I grew up in an all-white neighborhood. I went to a private funded school, that kind of thing. I was always the Oreo of everyone. So even for him, a person who is clearly end-to-end Black struggled in his own way to bring forth a voice because he felt the same way that you and I feel, that someone's going to look at him and say, how dare you talk on the Black experience? You've never lived a Black day in your life because you've actually experienced a lot of the privilege that white people have experienced. Mm-hmm. And this is why systematic racism has the psychological damage that it has, is because we have these lifetimes of narratives that keep us silent because there's that voice in our heads that say, you're not the right one. They're not going to listen to you. And I think you said it to me, and it was like one of those light bulb moments that went off for me. It's like, what was that moment where Beyonce was just like, fuck it, I'm Black?
Yeah.
Right? When she was doing, again, that's an example of a person who was trying to use her position to further Black people, to further Black women. And she was being told, you're not the right person. You're not the right shade. But it's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm here. I've got power. I've got position. So I'm going to use it.
Yeah. And you saw that everybody, I think, saw the year that happened for her.
The year that happened, where it's just like, I'm owning this now. Like, no more of your voices. No more voices telling me who I am. I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to be who I identify with. And I'm going to be proud of that. And that's why you touched on something very important, is that if you're in this conversation, if you and I are going to own Blackness, then we have to do something with it. Right? We have to use our privilege. We have to use our positions in order to bring a voice to where it matters, right? And not be so caught up in well, maybe I'm not the right person. Maybe I'm not the right person. Maybe I'm not the best person, but I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here and I'm willing. I'm here and I'm here. I have influence. I'm here. I have power. I'm here. I have a voice, and I can use that to uplift others. But if you're just going to use it to just claim it, then yes, we can argue that maybe that's an inappropriate way to claim your Blackness, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to be on that pedestal, then use it for something that's good.
What you said just now, I think, is so important, because that, I think, is the difference in me feeling comfortable and confident in claiming my racial identity.
Right.
Of just saying definitively, I am Black, I'm a member of the Black community, I am Indian, I'm a member of the Indian community. These are the groups that I champion. This is who I stand for, this is who I stand with. And I don't stand in front of.
Yes.
Because I think for a long time, identity felt like
that's a really good
standing in front of.
Yeah.
Like, I'm asking for the attention, I'm asking for the help, I'm asking to get the pass. Yeah. I'm taking. Yeah. But if I can give something back and I can provide value and I can provide protection, then that's a whole different reason for identity.
Because my network is predominantly Black, right? The people that I predominantly associate with are Black. You and I both. So by there, it's like we can blow the doors off of these quotas, because the more people that if I bring in another Black person, then their 25 people of network now have access to their positions. And the way that you even talk about you call it a pyramid scheme, but it's not that.
Yes.
Building generational wealth, but not necessarily not necessarily like for your own children, right? But you're expanding that to your own network. You're expanding that wealth. You're expanding that privilege to the people that you associate with.
And that's where I think these conversations now have more meaning to me. Another really big part of why it has meaning is that we're both mothers and you have kids who are physically black, who are biologically black, but emotionally and mentally, you felt like their identity issues still persist in the way that ours did.
Yeah, because they're growing up in a world where people don't see color, right? And where it's racist to see color. And I go back to this, I always go back to this, what happened last year was with Zara, my daughter, who is dark-skinned. She's got like curly hair, so, she's visibly black, having trouble with an assignment because a teacher asked her to write three things that describe herself physically. And I was like, well, what would you say if someone was gonna, find you in a crowded restaurant? She's like, well, I want to say that I'm, brown skinned, but I don't want to come off as racist, but that would be racist. And it was like, you grew up in a world where you're shamed for even acknowledging your color.
You
right?
changed their language because they identified as brown, and you changed their language to say, you're not brown, you're black. Why?
Because they're not brown. Brown is not
because we grew up being told we're brown. Like and I think to this day, both our parents are most comfortable with identifying as we're brown people.
And I think that the reason for my kids is because there was a sense of guilt for associating with black. And I didn't want them to feel guilt with that association. I wanted them to feel pride with that association. Saying you are brown is only you doing that backpedaling, right? And it's like, it's not a negative connotation, it's a positive connotation. And I was even talking to my husband Chris about that, because I said that he had a role to play in why the kids feel the way that they do. It's because if you ever call him black, he's like, he gets uncomfortable. He gets uncomfortable because he's always felt like that's had a negative connotation. So he himself wasn't using that word with a sense of pride, but he realized the message that was sending to his kids, to not just have the uncomfortable conversations, but to feel the uncomfortable feelings that you have or face the uncomfortable feelings that you have in order to drive change, right? So I think it's great.
This is a very uncomfortable conversation for me, so
is it?
It checks that box.
You look
All the body language experts now can be like, look how she's sitting, it's very obvious. It should be obvious. This is definitely hard for me, but this is the easiest and best person I could have had this conversation with.
Oh, we're holding hands.
Yes, we're holding. Why'd you make it to a handshake, weirdo?
That's how I shake hands.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Because we're doing this video with the support of Audible, I'm going to be recommending some audiobooks that I have leaned on this year to better educate myself on anti-racism and racial identity. Would love to hear in the comments some of the resources that you've tapped into.
Great job.
All right.
Thanks for watching this video sponsored by Audible, the leading provider of spoken word entertainment. If you haven't checked them out yet, give their 30-day free trial a try and explore the wide range of audio entertainment. Also, Audible is the only place to listen to Shan's audiobook, The Game of Desire, read by Shan. Visit audible.com/shanboody to start listening now. Or, if you're in the US, you can text shanboody to 500-500. Again, that's audible.com/shanboody or text shanboody to 500-500.
I don't speak about it, I don't ever play tough. I don't come around unless I'm about to lay up. I remember when I didn't have a way up. Mamacita got the roof, ride your face off.